don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacist, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues, and frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And
6 months ago, Kash Patel told Congress the FBI would be fully staffed and mission ready. Last week, he told the Senate it will take 14 years to get there. Both of those statements cannot be true. Jasmine Crockett said that out loud in a House hearing, and Patel had no real answer, because there isn't one, not when the majority of domestic terror threats in this country are coming from right-wing extremism. Not when multiple sitting Republicans have received documented death threats from their own side for voting against Jim Jordan, and not when an HBCU was targeted by domestic terrorism the very next day and the FBI said nothing. Patel took a victory lap over one arrest, the case cracked open by a parent, not by his bureau, while resources get redirected to street-level immigration enforcement instead of the threats his own. Numbers say are the real danger. Caleb Morgan, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button because we do not flinch and we do not let that slide. So let's get into it.
man, oh man, there has been so much today, and I truly don't know where to start. So I'm just going to make sure that we start off with a few facts. So a couple of facts that we need to make clear for everyone is that, number one, Director Christopher Wray, when he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining, yet we are supposed to believe that
That's
you are
false.
the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question. Now, what I want to go
false.
through is to talk about why you are a failure and why, honestly, we just need to tell you bye-bye. I know that you got a little upset and you put on your show for your boss because it seems like you're trying to save your job when it came to talking to Senator Booker yesterday. But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you are already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, you know, we're happy because now we feel safe. I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacist, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues. And frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And if we start talking about the reasons that I lack confidence, we could start with you not just wanting to acknowledge some simple facts. Simple facts like the vast majority of the threats are coming from right-wing extremism. And I know my colleagues have tried to stress this, but I decided that I would maybe do it in a different way. Number one, I have a couple of UCs. Kim Buck, one of multiple Republicans receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker.
Without objection.
Another one, Republican lawmaker says she received death threats after voting against Jim Jordan in Speaker's race.
Without objection.
In addition, there was another one from another colleague who now is leaving Congress because they said that they were calling his wife anonymously and threatening her life to the extent that she ended up sleeping with a firearm.
Without objection.
Okay, so here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs? You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people, and even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody, and then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap. Because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there, even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing except for trying to put on a show for the apprentice, or whatever you want to call him. The day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? Because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem, the one that is leading to children being killed, children being shot, as well as members of their community as they're worshiping in their churches.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. If the gentleman would like to respond to.
Let's start with the number nobody in that room could explain away. 14 years. That's how long Kash Patel says it will take to get the FBI fully staffed. Sit with that for a second. Because it's not just a staffing problem, it's a confession. It's an admission that the institution meant to investigate domestic terrorism, protect elected officials, and respond to targeted violence is being hollowed out in real time, while its director stands in front of Congress and calls that acceptable. And here's what makes Crockett's questioning so effective. She didn't come in swinging with outrage first. She came in with a record. Patel is the first FBI director in the Bureau's history to take the job without ever having served inside it. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. You can check. And when you put a career loyalist with zero institutional experience in charge of the most consequential domestic security agency in the country, what you get is exactly what we're watching. An agency that can throw a press conference and a victory lap dinner over an arrest that a parent turning in their own kid handed them, and then go completely silent the next day when an HBCU is targeted by domestic terrorism. That silences the story. Because Crockett didn't just say the FBI is a double standard and leave it there, she put dates and names on the table. Republican lawmakers, sitting members of Congress, entered into the record as recipients of death threats for the crime of voting against Jim Jordan for Speaker, a colleague's wife sleeping with a firearm in her own home because of threats made against her husband. This is not a hypothetical about political rhetoric getting heated. This is the documented, entered into record reality of where political violence in this country is actually coming from right now. And when Crockett pressed on that fact that the vast majority of domestic threats are traced to right-wing extremism, the response wasn't data, it wasn't a rebuttal, it was silence, followed by a pivot to redirecting agents towards street-level immigration enforcement instead. Think about the actual math of that decision. You have a director admitting a 14-year staffing gap, a documented pattern of threats against sitting members of Congress from the far right, an active domestic terror incident at a historically black university that got zero public FBI response. And the choice, with the limited resources available, is to move agents toward ICE-style enforcement instead of closing that gap. That's not a staffing problem anymore. That's a stated set of priorities. And priorities tell you everything about who an institution is actually built to protect. This is the part that should stay with you longer than the hearing clip itself. When a federal law enforcement agency responds to threats against a historically black institution with silence, no. Statement, No public accounting, nothing. That silence sends a message just as loudly as any press release would. It tells black communities exactly how seriously their safety is being taken relative to a PR-friendly arrest. That's not rhetoric. That's the pattern Crockett laid out in that room on the record, backed by documents Congress itself entered into evidence. And that's exactly why moments like this one matter more than the 5 minutes they take up. Because the story here isn't really about one hearing or one exchange, it's about what happens when accountability gets treated as optional at the top of federal law enforcement, and who ends up paying the price for that when the threats keep coming and the response keeps not. So here's what I want to know from you. Do you think 14 years is a staffing failure or a choice? Drop it in the comments because I want to hear where you land on this one. If this is the kind of breakdown you want more of, you already know what to do. Hit that subscribe button because we're not going anywhere, and neither is the accountability. I'm Caleb Morgan, and I'll see you in the next one.